So I had to start this video a little bit differently to most. Here is footage of me getting in this car for the first time. I haven't stepped in it for a little while. I haven't been in a Mini for a couple of years. And this is me just stepping in and trying to figure out the buttons. And the reason I want to point it out is because do you know how many modern cars have sub-menus and bits and pieces you have to start pressing and figuring out when you've got out of one car and into this one? And it can take you quite a long time, even if you're experienced in motoring journalism or you've been a salesman or just your job means you're jumping in and out of cars. The Mini, it was simple. The person who had been driving it, who dropped it off, they left the radio on full blast. I'm not sure what the song was, but I'm guessing YouTube would find out, and So this is me. I think I'm ready to go. I got the volume down, figured out the headlights were on automatic, got the keyless start. Press button, go into first gear, and away we went. Okay, so this is a bit of an interesting one because for me, Mini has always been a little bit of a middle ground car. Now, they aim predominantly at a younger market, although as Minis have got newer, they've got larger, and that market has expanded. But I've always managed to fit in a Mini, and well, the newer Minis, I have to say. I had to take photos once of the classic Mini, and I had no chance. And as you can see, I'm a bit squashed in this one. But the key thing about this car, particularly this one, this is just a regular spec. This isn't anything special. This isn't a Cooper S or anything like that. This is your regular spec Mini. This is quite popular with driving instructors. They're trying to capture them with this car. And I think in this car at least, that kind of works. What it doesn't work on is the electric version. And I don't really understand why anyone would buy the electric version over this. For the most part, this is a car that appeals to an audience that are going to have to consider running costs, buying it, and insurance. And this sort of mid-level or base spec entry point into Minis is kind of where a lot of them will figure, will get into the brand. Now they might move on to the Cooper S from there, or go up to clubman size, but this is really the one that's got to attract them. And I think this does a pretty good job. The market, I think it's well defined, but it makes me question why on earth anyone who's within Mini's market would look to change or would look to go electric. Now, I'm sure Mini have done their market research and they've got their answers. I'm going to go back to the studio now, and I'm going to go and do my own little bit of research. I'll take you with me, and we'll see if we can figure it out. I think this is one of the big issues we face when you're trying to compare today something that's electric with something that is conventional and internal combustion or hybrid engine. And it's that there is still a push for manufacturers. I don't know whether it's because they're just not selling as many as they want, or they want to try and sort of get people buying no matter what. When I've looked at the payments, so there is nearly £10,000. As you'll see in the video, I'm driving a 5-door version of the Mini. They don't do a 5-door version of the electric for some reason. So I am comparing a Mini Electric Level 2, which is the sort of base level Mini Electric you can buy, which is 3 doors, with the base 3-door Cooper Classic that you can buy in the petrol. Prices £22,995 on the road for a petrol model, so £23,000. Step over to the electric, £32,500, £32,550 to be exact. That to me, that's the problem. Is I say, and I said it in the video, and we'll go back out in the car in just a minute, but that to me is a really big price gap for most people to be looking at in a car. When I was selling cars, if you had something like £5,000 between two cars, you were talking about either different cars, as in different models, or widely different specification. This really is just coming down to an engine or an electric motor with a battery. I understand from the cost side of the manufacturer that, but from the consumer side, this is difficult. Now, I thought what I would do, I'll step into my car salesman clothes for a minute and see if I could justify it. And so now I've got my Ice to Eskimos tie on. This is the tie that you would use as a good salesman, and you can sell anything to anyone. But I still think I'm going to have a bit of a challenge here. Now, the fact of the matter is, I've talked about the difference in price between the list price and the list price. Well, let's talk about payments, because payments, that's how you buy a car. That's why you've come to see me in my old car sales suit with my rather nice tie on. It's difficult because Mini don't make it even. So if you want 4 years worth of payments on the petrol version, it's £323 if you can put £2,000 down and do 10,000 miles a year. Okay. If you want the electric one, it's £412 in the exact same 10,000 miles a year, £2,000 down. But it's not a fair comparison, and here's where I'm not sure whether it's just Mini are trying to sell the electric ones. I know they do have a new electric one coming out, so maybe that's something to do with it. But if you want the petrol one, you have to pay 6.9% APR. If you want the electric one, you pay 2.9% APR. And that means that there's only a £90 gap. Now, could I sell you a £90 gap? Well, I'm not a car salesman anymore, and it's been quite a long time. And honestly, I probably wasn't the best car salesman in the world because I like to sell things that I had my heart behind. But let me step over to when I was a car journalist and see if I could sell you a Mini then, or at least convince you to go with the electric one. No, can't do it. Not even with my much more relaxed, as you'll see, no tie from when I was a car journalist. Yeah, I did just have a quick look, see if I had any articles written on the Mini Cooper electric, because I thought if I've written something out there and it's still on the internet, and I'm saying this is the best car in the world, then I'm going to look a bit of a fool here. But fortunately, no, I don't think I ever actually did a review on this car, and I don't think I've written anything about it. I'm not knocking the Mini Cooper electric here. I think if you want an electric car, go and buy that one. The trouble I have with it is that I struggle to see who is spending £412.14. That's the payment. I mean, to be fair, £323.05 is still quite a lot of money. It's not as much money as the new miles driven book, which I'll put a link below. Let's just go back out in the car and we'll come back to me back in the studio in a couple of minutes' time. And when you're calling yourselves Mini, you're kind of not guaranteeing that your average, let's say taller than average guy, can just jump in and drive. But Mini deliver, and they have done actually in the BMW era. I had to drive the old generation. I say drive, I was doing a bit of classic car photography years ago. It was a very late model of the previous classic Mini, if you like. And they only said, oh, you know, he had a bit of a bad back and that was why he was selling it. It was a kind of classic. Him and his wife had it since it was a couple of years old or whatever. And he said, oh, do you mind moving it for me to take the pictures? I didn't want to be rude. I said, oh yeah, I'll give it a go. I couldn't actually operate the clutch or the brake pedal really at all. My sort of leg was up here. With a bit of gymnastics, we did it, but I wouldn't want to repeat that. Minis have always been a little bit compromised on is they deliver a really good darty bit of handling. But sometimes when you then show them some bumps, they show up that compromise. So let's take it down this estate just coming up here. I know there's some speed bumps down here, so let's see what it's like. I've just gone over it, quite a big bump in the road. Right, this is the first challenge. I'll go back to that bump in the road in a second. Okay. Do you know what? I mean, it's not a Rolls Royce, but it's not bad. Let's come and see. These are a little bit shallower, the bumps coming up here. Let's see if these are a little bit lighter on it. Yeah, tolerable, absolutely tolerable. Considering the better handling that this gives you, I think that's completely tolerable. For the handling, if it didn't have the handling and this was the amount of bump you had going over stuff, maybe a bit. But I'm going to take you back to the studio now. I actually asked a few friends who are sort of
would actually own a Mini. You know, so some of them are a bit younger. One or two I managed to find that were a little bit older because I thought I don't want to just sort of say, oh, it's only young people that buy Mini because that's just untrue. And I said to them, what would you pay today for a brand new Mini if you had to put £2,000 down? Most of them scratched their heads of where they would get £2,000 from. They would probably want to hold it in savings if they did have it. But that's if with £2,000 down, they were like, well, £250 a month, maybe 300. That's kind of where they would go. I said, okay, well, car salesman head on. Well, if I can push the budget a little bit more, you can get yourself into a brand new Mini Cooper. If I was Mini, that would be my big sale right now. Look, it can get you into this car brand new. You can have one. You can get into the Mini brand. The electric one at £420, what was the exact figure I had? I want to be unfair to it. Was £412.14. Flat nose. So I'm going to end this by saying if you want to buy a Mini, I would go for a base spec, or to be fair, for the price jump, I'd probably go for like the Sport or one slightly above. Spend a couple of £1,000s more. To be honest, with payments, residual values, you could probably get a deal close to that 323 of what I worked out on the lease plan for one of these for 4 years. That would be my pick of the bunch anyway. That's the one I would go for. If you do want an older Mini, and you're watching this, and you're thinking, oh yeah, that's great, but what I'd really want is something a little bit faster, a little bit older, something I could work on. Well, we have a buyer's guide for the R53 Mini Cooper S, that's the supercharged one, and we have a buyer's guide for the R56 Mini Cooper S, that's the turbocharged one that came out afterwards. So why don't you check out those videos next?